Here is your 3,000-word script, ready to copy and paste. There's an error that spiritually sincere people make with an impressive frequency, and the more sincere the person, the more subtle and damaging this error becomes. It is not a lack of faith, it is not a lack of effort, it is the opposite. It is wanting too much, in the wrong way. And Kabbalah has an explanation for this paradox that will change the way you relate to prosperity starting today. Think with me for a moment. Have you noticed that certain things in life come when you stop chasing them? That there are relationships that blossomed when you relaxed, opportunities that appeared when you had almost given up, solutions that came at the moment you stopped forcing. This is not a coincidence. It is not irony of fate. It is a spiritual law that Kabbalah describes with a precision that surprises even those who have studied for years. And what I'm going to show you today goes against almost everything that the modern world teaches about success, about manifestation, about attracting abundance. Because the modern world says, focus more, want more, visualize with more intensity, declare with more strength. And Kabbalah says something radically different. Something that seems counterintuitive until you understand the mechanism behind it, and then it becomes the most obvious thing you've ever heard. Tell me in the comments before we continue. Have you ever felt like you wanted something so intensely that it seemed like the more you wanted it, the further away it became? That there was a tension in the desire that seemed to create resistance instead of attraction? Write it down, because this phenomenon you felt has a precise name in the Kabbalistic tradition. And today, you will understand what to do with it. If you are not yet part of this community, subscribe now and activate the bell. Because this type of teaching is not found everywhere. And when it is found, it is worth keeping carefully. Let me start with a story. A family story. The kind that survives because it touches on something too true to be forgotten. Imagine a young rabbi who had just taken over his first congregation in a small town. He was talented, dedicated, full of ideas. But the community was poor, resources were scarce, and he felt the weight of the responsibility to build something meaningful with almost nothing. One day, he went to visit an older rabbi from a neighboring town, a man already of advanced age with decades of accumulated wisdom. The young man vented about his difficulties, about the financial pressure of the congregation, about his anxiety regarding the future. And in the middle of his outburst, the older rabbi gently interrupted him and asked, "When you wake up in the morning, what is the first thought you have?" The young man replied without hesitation, "I think about what is missing, about what we need, about what we still don't have." The old man fell silent for a moment. Then he said, "And are you surprised that what is missing continues to be missing? You are watering the seed of lack every morning with your first attention. What you water grows, always." The young man was left speechless, and the old man continued with a gentleness that made the words even heavier. It is not desire that pushes away prosperity, it is desire born from lack. Learn to desire from a place of fullness, and everything changes. This story stayed with me because it accurately describes the mechanism that Kabbalah systematically explains, and it is exactly this mechanism that we are going to explore today. The central concept I need to present to you is one of the most sophisticated in the entire Kabbalistic tradition. It is called ratzon, will, desire. But not just any desire, the will with a capital W. The primordial force that, according to Kabbalah, is at the foundation of all creation. In the beginning of everything, the Kabbalists teach, there was only Ein Sof, the infinite without limit, without form, without definition. And the first movement towards creation was a ratzon, a will, a desire to express itself, to reveal itself, to share the infinite light with that which did not yet exist. This original ratzon did not arise from lack, it arose from fullness. Ein Sof did not create because it was incomplete. It created because it was so full that the fullness overflowed into creation. It is a fundamental distinction, and it directly applies to the way humans relate to their own desires. There is the ratzon de gadlut, the desire that arises from greatness, from fullness, from expanded consciousness. And there is the ratzon de katnut, the desire that arises from smallness, from lack, from the fear of not having. These two types of desire have very similar external appearances. Inside, they are complete opposites, and they produce completely different results. Let's understand the spiritual mechanism more precisely. And here, Kabbalah uses an image that is both simple and devastatingly accurate. The Kabbalistic masters taught that the flow of abundance, the shefa, the fullness that descends from the higher planes to the material plane, is attracted by similarity. It moves toward what resonates with it. And what resonates with the shefa is fullness, not need. This is not cruel. It is spiritual mathematics. The shefa is fullness in motion. It finds receivers that vibrate at the same frequency. Receivers that, even before having received, already internally inhabit a state of sufficiency, gratitude, and trust. When you desire from lack, when your desire is imbued with anxiety, urgency, fear that it will not arrive, you are tuned to a frequency that does not resonate with the shefa. You are emitting the signal of scarcity. And lack does not attract abundance. It attracts more lack, because that is what is being declared as reality. This is what Kabbalah calls din bemalchut, the judgment at the level of manifestation. The material world tends to confirm what is established in the higher planes of consciousness. And what is established in the higher planes is determined by the quality of your attention, your intention, and your habitual internal state. But now comes the question that always arises when this teaching is presented. And it is an honest question that deserves an honest answer. If I am in real difficulty, if there are concrete things missing in my life, if the pressure is genuine, how do I desire from abundance? Isn't that deluding myself? Isn't it pretending a reality that does not exist? The answer from Kabbalah is sophisticated and precise. No, it is not deluding oneself. Because the abundance that Kabbalists ask for is not the abundance of external circumstances. It is the abundance of connection with the source. There is a concept called ayin, the creative nothing. In Kabbalah, ayin is not absence. It is the state of consciousness that is beyond forms, beyond limitations, beyond the narrative of lack or abundance that the mind constructs. It is the state of one who connects with the source before it manifests in specific forms. It is the space from which everything emerges. When mystics said that we need to desire from fullness, they were not asking you to ignore your situation. They were asking you to go beyond it, to connect, even for a moment, with the source that is prior to the situation, and to bring that connection as the soil in which your desire will grow. A desire rooted in connection with the source has a completely different quality than a desire rooted in anxiety about circumstances. The former is like a seed planted in fertile ground. The latter is like a seed thrown onto cement. It may germinate for a moment, but it will not take root. The Kabbalists also identified a specific phenomenon they called chipazon, hipazon, inadequate spiritual haste. It is the quality of anxious urgency that contaminates desire and transforms it from a creative force into a destructive force. Chipazon is not enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is healthy. It is chiyut, vital force. Chipazon is the enthusiasm that turned into anxiety. It is the desire that turned into demand. It is the prayer that turned into a requirement. It is the intention that turned into control. And the problem with chipazon is that it contracts the kli, the vessel. When you are in a state of anxious urgency, your internal vessel closes. Not because you do not deserve what you want, but because contraction does not allow reception. A closed fist cannot receive anything, regardless of what heaven wants to place in it. The great Hasidic masters had an expression to describe the opposite state of chippazon. They called it menucha, menucha, rest, tranquility. Not inertia, not passivity, but the active tranquility of someone who trusts that the process is happening even when it is not visible. The tranquility of someone who has planted and is now patiently waiting for the work of the earth without digging up the seed every day to see if it has grown. Menucha is the internal state that creates maximum receptivity, and maximum receptivity is what allows Shefa to flow without obstruction. Now I will give you 3 concrete practices to transform the quality of your desire. Not to eliminate desire, but to purify it. To move the Ratzon the Katnut towards the Ratzon the Gatlut. The first practice is called Tefillat HaShefa, Tefillat HaShepa, the prayer of abundance. It is a specific way of formulating your requests that fundamentally changes the frequency from which they emerge. Most people pray like this: I need more money. I do not have enough. Please send more. This prayer is rooted in Ratzon the Katnut, in the desire of lack. Every word confirms the absence. A Tefillat HaShefa has a different structure. It begins with genuine gratitude for what already exists, even if it is little. Then it connects that little with the source from where it came, recognizing that if it has arrived, the source exists and is active. Only then does it formulate the request, not as someone who begs, but as someone who is expanding a channel that is already open. It sounds like this: I recognize with gratitude what I have already received. I see the active source in my life, even where it seems little, and I open my kli to receive more than what already flows, because the flow exists and I am a capable channel. Do this for 21 days before any specific request. The change that will happen is not first in the external circumstances. It is in the internal texture of your relationship with desire, and this internal change is what prepares the ground for external changes. The second practice comes directly from the teaching about Menucha and is called the sacred interval. Every time you notice that you are in chippazon mode, in anxious urgency, wanting with tension, anxiously monitoring if the result is coming, you stop. 5 minutes, just 5. During those 5 minutes, you do one thing. You breathe consciously and internally repeat a phrase that the Kabbalists used as an anchor. In Hebrew, the phrase is Yesh Makor, Yesh Makor. There is a source. You can say it in Portuguese. There is a source. What I need exists. The channel is open. I don't need to force the river. This practice interrupts the chippazon cycle. It does not deny the need. It reorients the consciousness from anxious urgency to active trust. And this reorientation, done consistently every time chippazon appears, creates a new pattern, a new teva, a new nature. The nature of someone who desires calmly instead of desiring with tension. The third practice is the most structural and perhaps the most transformative in the long term. It is called Reshimat HaShefa, Reshimat HaShefa, the record of abundance. For 40 days, every day before sleeping, you write, in a simple notebook on any paper, 3 manifestations of Shefa that you received that day. They don't have to be big. In fact, the practice is more powerful when you train your eye to see the small ones, because the small ones are the ones that anxiety usually makes invisible. It could be a conversation that nourished you, an idea that came at the right moment, an obstacle that dissolved without you needing to force it, a feeling of unexpected peace in a difficult moment, a coincidence that facilitated something that seemed complicated. What you are doing with this record is training your perception to tune into the frequency of Shefa. You are literally reprogramming what your attention considers real and significant. And when attention retunes, when you start to see Shefa where you previously saw only absence, your internal state changes. And when the internal state changes, the frequency you emit changes. And when the frequency changes, what you attract changes. This is not magical thinking. It is the direct application of what the Kabbalists called hergel, Conscious habit, the habit of seeing abundance, practiced consistently, creates a new baseline state. And this new baseline state is the Ratzon the Gadlut, the desire born of greatness, which is the most fertile ground for genuine prosperity to take root. There is a verse from the Psalms that summarizes everything we discussed today with an economy and beauty that no intellectual argument can match. David writes, Lo echsar, I shall not want. Not as a result of favorable circumstances, as a declaration of internal state, as a posture of consciousness. David was not in a situation of abundance when he wrote many of his psalms. He was often in danger, in exile, in difficulty. But the Lo echsar was not about external circumstances. It was about the quality of your connection to the source. It was the declaration of one who had learned to dwell in the Ratzon the Gadlut, even in the midst of the storm. And this is what Kabbalah invites us to cultivate. Not the denial of difficulty, not the performance of positivity, but the real, rooted, consistent connection to the source, which allows desire to live in a soil of fullness instead of a soil of lack. And that this desire, purified and rooted, becomes the channel through which the Shefa can flow without the resistance of Chipazon, without the contraction of the closed Kli, without the blockage of Ratzon de Katnut. Tell me in the comments, which of the three practices will you try first? The Tefillat HaShefa, the sacred interval, or the Reshimat HaShefa? Write it down. And if you have already practiced something similar, tell me what you observed, because the experience of our community is a living teaching that grows with each video. And if this teaching has reached you at a time when you are seeking a healthier relationship with money, desire, and prosperity, share it with those you love. Because sometimes the greatest transformation begins with a single idea that arrives at the exact moment when the person is ready to receive. A blessing for you who stayed until here, and who perhaps, throughout this video, has already felt something relax within you. Something that was too tense, something that was holding too tightly. May this relaxation continue. May your desire be pure. May it arise from abundance and not from lack. May you learn to want with the calmness of one who knows that the source does not run dry. May the chipazon within you find menucha. May the tension find rest. May the clenched fist find the courage to open. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Eternal bless you and guard you. May the Lord shine His face upon you and be gracious to you. May His light illuminate the path that your eyes cannot yet see. May the Lord lift up His countenance upon you and give you peace. May peace, the wholeness of one who does not need to force the river because they trust in the spring, rest upon you. Amen and Amen. In the next video, we will talk about a hidden Kabbalistic secret within the structure of your name. What the great sages taught about how the name you received at birth carries the imprint of your soul and the map of your tikkun. A very personal video that will make you look at your own identity in a completely new way. Activate the bell and I'll see you there. Peace.